I want to turn now and get more perspective on this from Jeremy Bash, former chief of staff at both the Department of Defense and the CIA. Jeremy, good morning. Let's talk about this explosion in Gaza because, of course, it has set off such a firestorm. The president said that information from the Pentagon, from his own Defense Department, convinced him that it was not an Israeli airstrike. Is there information that the president would be privy to over and above what the Israelis would have provided?
Absolutely. We conduct our own independent analysis in a situation like this, so the president can rely on American intelligence professionals, American technical experts to provide him with that analysis. We may also have our own independent sources of collection. The White House cited 3 sources of collection. They talked about overhead imagery, which really means satellites. They talked about intercepts, which really means listening to phone calls or reading texts or emails. They talked about open source, really meaning looking at social media, using powerful algorithms to analyze that public data. That intelligence was served up to the president, and he was pretty clear when he was on the ground. This was our conclusion. Because of the immediate outrage, of course, the president's part of the visit that was supposed to be a summit with the Arab world, Arab leaders in Jordan, was canceled. What is the consequence of that? Well, I think it was a huge missed opportunity for those Arab leaders to influence the thinking of President Biden. And essentially, they jumped the gun. They canceled the summit even before the facts were in on this hospital bombing. I think they were obviously reacting to the popular sentiment on the street. But we're going to need those Arab leaders. We're going to need Egypt in particular because they have this land border with Gaza, and they're going to be responsible for sending aid into the people of Gaza. Well, let's talk about that because there are aid trucks poised at the border right now, the Egyptian border with Gaza. They're not being allowed in. Some of the president's work yesterday was to tell Israel, you've got to let humanitarian aid in. So what's the holdup? Who's preventing that right now? Yeah, I talked to sources inside the administration, and they said clearly Egypt is the holdup right now. Earlier in the week, it was really the Israelis who were saying, look, if Hamas is going to get a resupply of fuel, of food, maybe of weapons, we reserve the right to strike those convoys and prevent the terrorists from rearming. But I think the president did a great job of reassuring Israel and saying, you got to let that aid in. And that was the main accomplishment of the president's visit. The president was also quite pointed. He invoked 9/11 and the feelings of vengeance and rage that we've felt, of course, in this country. And he said to the people of Israel, don't let your rage consume you. And he also mentioned after 9/11 that America had made mistakes, in his view, in its response. How do you suppose that would be received not only by the Israeli street, but also by the war cabinet that he met with and the leaders of Israel? Yeah, I think it came in friendship. It was a message delivered with a lot of emotion, a lot of grace, a lot of I got your back. And so I think the president is putting a lot of deposits in the goodwill bank there with the Israelis because he knows there may be times during this war when the United States is going to have to say to Israel, we disagree with your approach. We want you to change your course. All right, Jeremy Bash, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.